All right, let's dive right into this explainer and look at a brilliantly effective system for stopping those predictable life events from totally destroying your budget. Listen, we have all been there. You sit down at the kitchen table, you meticulously craft this perfect monthly budget, and you think to yourself, okay, I finally got this whole money thing under control. Then, maybe 2 weeks later, your entire plan just gets blown up by a sudden expense, leaving you frustrated and right back at square one. If you've ever felt that universal pain of a blown budget, you are definitely not alone. You're likely dealing with what author Steve Green calls ambush expenses in his book, Financial Health in the 30 Steps, From Debt Chaos to a Balanced Budget. Today, we're going to draw specifically from session 15 of his book, pulling out the exact actionable steps to stabilize your finances. We are going to transform financial chaos into structured, peaceful preparation. Here's our quick roadmap for today. Number 1, the budget ambush effect. Number 2, finding your irregular expenses. Number 3, doing the monthly math. Number 4, building your sinking funds. And finally, number 5, empathy for future you. Let's start with section 1, the budget ambush effect. To really get into this, we have to look at the psychological reason your financial planning might feel so incredibly frustrating right now. It is absolutely crucial to understand that if your budget keeps failing, it's highly likely not because you're bad at managing your daily spending, like buying groceries or grabbing that morning coffee. You make a solid plan, right? And then 2 weeks later, bam, you get hit with a hefty car repair or a massive annual software subscription renewal, and suddenly the budget is totally broken. But here's the truth. The budget didn't fail, the budget was just incomplete. These expenses feel like villains jumping out from behind a door to ambush you, which triggers instant panic. And you know how most people react to that panic? They just throw the expense on a high-interest credit card, or worse, they abandon the whole budgeting process altogether. Behavioral economists actually call this the planning fallacy. We chronically underestimate future costs even when we know perfectly well they are coming. Seriously, incredibly smart people fail at this every single day. The reason smart people fail is deeply rooted in our psychology. It's a cognitive bias known as the availability heuristic. And what's wild is that your brain is operating completely normally when it forgets annual expenses. It simply prioritizes immediate survival and daily routines over distant, abstract fees. Think about it. If you pay rent or mortgage every single month, it feels viscerally real to you, and your brain remembers it easily. But if you pay your car registration only once a year, your brain essentially makes it invisible until the actual bill shows up in your mailbox. You aren't being irresponsible, you aren't bad at math. Your brain is literally tricking you into ignoring infrequent events. The massive problem here is that when these surprises just keep happening, your nervous system learns that money is chaotic and unpredictable, and that causes deep underlying stress. We need to fix that design flaw. Moving right along to section 2, finding your irregular expenses. So how do we outsmart our own brains? Well, we have to create an ambush catalog. We have to take these invisible, irregular expenses and drag them out into the light so we can actively schedule them. Based on exercise 1 from Steve Green's program, this is a super simple 3-step process that will help you uncover the irregular evidence hiding in your actual spending history. First, log into your accounts and pull your bank and credit card statements from the last 6 to 12 months. Do not rely on your memory. Remember, your memory is totally compromised by that cognitive bias we just talked about. Second, grab a highlighter. Literally, get a bright highlighter and mark any expense that happens only once or twice a year or is seasonal. Third, use those highlighted statements to jog your memory and create a master list. Look for things like that $120 dentist trip or the $139 annual Amazon Prime renewal. Pulling these statements is often a huge shock. I mean, most people are completely astounded by how much money secretly flows through these irregular events. Now, when you start building this ambush catalog, you start to realize something kind of funny. Think about it. It is borderline ridiculous that we act surprised by winter heating bills or December holidays, considering they happen at the exact same time every single year. These aren't true emergencies. Actually, scratch that. A true emergency is something you literally couldn't have seen coming, like a sudden medical crisis or a tree falling on your house. But a car needing new tires, your dog needing routine vaccinations, buying Christmas presents, those are just unplanned predictables. They are the totally normal rhythms of adulthood. By grouping your expenses into specific categories like home repairs, family gifts, vet visits, and seasonal energy bills, you finally stop treating normal life events as bad luck. You're identifying the leaks in your financial ship so we can actually patch them. Which brings us to section 3, doing the monthly math. Let's dive right into exercise 3 from the source material and see how identifying these ambushes builds into a super manageable monthly savings plan. This is where we turn anxiety into a concrete mathematical strategy.
And the magic number here is 12. By dividing an annual expense by 12, you turn a scary, overwhelming surprise into a tiny, manageable monthly target. Think about the emotional relief of this shift for a second. Instead of scrambling in an absolute panic to find $1,200 at the last minute for property taxes, you slice that terrifying looming monster into a boring, highly predictable $100 monthly transfer.
Let's walk through a really concrete example using this helper sheet. Say you estimate that your car maintenance averages about $600 a year. You divide that by 12. Boom. That leaves you with a $50 monthly budget installment. Easy. If holiday and birthday gifts cost you about $500 a year, dividing that gives you roughly $42 a month. A $240 annual vet bill, that simply becomes $20 a month. When you add up that right-hand column, your total monthly savings goal to cover all of these categories is $112. Now you might be thinking, what if $112 a month feels like way too much right now? That is completely okay. Just taking off the blindfold and knowing the exact mathematical reality changes everything. By assigning specific amounts to these targeted funds, you gain incredible strategic clarity, taking you from playing defense to playing offense.
All right, section 4, building your sinking funds.
So now that we have the math figured out, we need to set up a mini system to physically hold this money. In his program, Steve Green introduces the critical concept of establishing dedicated accounts to manage these exact categories. This is widely known as setting up sinking funds. Establishing targeted sinking funds prevents you from falling back into that destructive cycle of credit card rescues when seasonal bills or home repairs arrive. And the logistics? Incredibly simple. You choose 3 to 5 categories, like a car fund, a vet fund, and a gifts fund. Then, you literally just log into your bank and open a few free sub-savings accounts, giving them those exact nicknames. A sinking fund is just a small monthly allocation for a future known cost stored in a clearly labeled bank account. So instead of panicking and swiping a high-interest credit card in December, you gradually, calmly prepare throughout the entire year.
What's great is that this system is incredibly adaptable, even if your household income fluctuates. If you work freelance, rely on commissions, or have variable shift work, do not stress about hitting the exact dollar amount right away. It is so much more important to build the habit of systematically funding these categories first. Think of this like building financial muscle memory. It doesn't matter if you're lifting 5 pounds or 50 pounds. The habit of showing up is what prepares you for the heavy lifting later on. Transferring even $10 a month into a home repair fund trains your system to absorb impact rather than collapse under it. Then, as your income stabilizes or as you get your debt down, you can scale those amounts up to hit your actual targets.
And finally, section 5, empathy for future you.
We really need to talk about the profound emotional payoff of doing this exercise. Budgeting so often gets a bad reputation as being restrictive or punishing, right? But this specific system creates an incredible sense of safety. Planning for irregular expenses is not a restriction at all. It's a profound form of self-care and peace of mind. It comes down to a concept called temporal empathy. See, human beings naturally tend to view their future self as a complete stranger, which makes it super easy to sabotage them. But research shows that people who feel connected to their future selves make much smarter financial decisions. Bridging that gap changes budgeting from punishing your current self to fiercely protecting your future self. When you set aside $50 for future car repairs, you are actively acknowledging that the you 6 months from now deserves stability. When you make future you real, preparation feels deeply responsible.
I absolutely love this quote because it perfectly captures the essence of the source material. When you pre-fund your life, you are no longer at the mercy of the calendar. Just imagine the visceral feeling of a $400 school fee arriving in the mail. Normally, that triggers a massive stress response, right? But with this system, you open the envelope, and instead of panicking, you just smirk. Because that money has been sitting in a clearly labeled account, quietly waiting for 3 months just for this exact moment. That is the ultimate financial upgrade. It's moving from a life of constant reaction to a life of calm anticipation. You aren't playing defense anymore, you're literally walking around wearing financial armor.
So here is the big question. Are you ready to stop being financially ambushed? Write out your own declaration today, start your ambush catalog, and completely take back control of your financial future. Remember, most money emergencies are simply unplanned predictables, and with this mathematical framework, you can absolutely outsmart them. Ask yourself right now, what irregular expense has caused the most damage and stress to your budget in the past? And what specific sinking fund would make you feel the absolute safest if you started it today? Don't wait. Take 15 minutes right now, pull those bank statements, and give your future self the ultimate gift of peace of mind.